So Paris have been incredibly busy cleaning up the Seine so that Olympians can swim in it. It's a river that's been so polluted that it's been illegal to take a dip in it. You will be fined. And many would think you're crazy to even just think about doing it. And this is because for a very long time it's been subject to human excrement, human poo. And these efforts to clean up the Seine have been in full swing since Paris won the bid to host the Olympics in 2024. Right now, the Olympics is happening right now. And they've vastly improved it, but it hasn't been without its problems. The two events which are being held in the Seine have already commenced, which is the triathlon and the marathon swimming. However, on the first day of the triathlon, it was postponed due to poor water quality. But a day later, the water was tested and it was all right. And the events have gone ahead. But since completing the event, there have been some stories emerging. You know, we've seen athletes throwing up at the finish line. We've heard about athletes saying that they felt and seen things which they shouldn't have in the water. And there's also been a few cases of some of the swimmers getting sick, although I think it's a bit early to say whether if it's been the water that's made them sick. But either way, it doesn't look good. And while I do care about the athletes and I do care about the Olympics, here at Leave Curious, we are interested in nature restoration. We're interested in efforts to bring back nature. And that's exactly what's been happening here in the Seine. Even though they've been cleaning it up for the Olympians, it's also been helping nature. So freshwater rivers, they run throughout our landscapes. They really are the places that brings nature together. They're the places that bring people together. And you know, they really should be places where we can come on a hot day and cool off and have fun. And back in the UK, we have the exact same problem as Paris, although we're not doing anything to try and fix the problem. We're not pumping 1.6 billion into fixing it. We're kind of doing nothing about it. And look, there's many interesting angles to this story and we're going to look at them, but the one which I want to focus on, the key takeaway which I want to take away from this video is that Paris are trying to do something good and they have been cleaning the Seine. Kind of. So what's caused this problem of pollution in the Seine is a very common problem amongst old cities. It's an outdated sewage system where you have wastewater and you have storm water combined into the same pipe. When the weather's like this and it's sunny and there's been no rain, the system can cope because it's not dealing with a lot of stormwater. So when it rains and there's a lot of stormwater coming into the system, it causes an overload. And to save your poop coming back up your own toilet in these times of overload, there are overflow drains. And the only problem is that they come directly out into the Seine. So last year I visited one of the UK's most polluted rivers. Here you could readily observe sanitary towels coming out. You could see fecal matter, condoms. Anything that got put down the toilet would come out here in these overflow events. I mean, everything stunk there. It really wasn't a nice location. Everything was covered in like a layer of slime. And that'll be true for any river which gets excessive amounts of raw sewage pumped out into it. So what actually happens is because of all of the excess nutrient going into the river, aka human poo, what happens is this builds up algal blooms, and this is really not good for the aquatic life which lives in the river. So all of the macro invertebrates and all of the aquatic insects, they rely on having fresh water, and when you've got all of this nutrient going in, they can't survive, and they form the base of the food chain too, so everything above them suffers. And not to mention that typically in cities the rivers are heavily modified, so they're canalized, they're straightened up, there's a lot of concrete which goes in, there's typically not many trees. I'm actually on like a nice little island bit where there are some trees. Trees are really important next to rivers because that wood going in is essential, but it just rarely happens in urban environments. And for the wildlife and the ecology, for the most part, they just have to put up with this. They have to try and persist and try and survive in these habitats. Whereas humans, you know, as much as it should be our right to be able to get into rivers like this and go for a swim safely, we ultimately do have a choice about getting in or not. Unless, of course, you're an Olympian here in Paris. And the water here at the Seine has been continuously tested, both during the cleanup and during the games. It has to be below a certain level. Look, I'll just check my notes here for this. So under the World Triathlon's guidelines, E. coli levels up to 1,000 colony forming units per 100 millilitres can be considered good and can allow competitions to go forward. Anything above this is deemed too dangerous. So it seems like that there always is going to be a risk. And that's what happened on the day of the men's triathlon. The water was deemed not good enough and it didn't go ahead, but a day later it was fine. Now, I don't know how confidence inspiring it is to know that one day it's not going to be good and another day it can be fine. And the reason for this fluctuation, the reasons why one day it can be good and the next it can be bad, is due to one uncontrollable variable, and that is the weather. This is what Paris have been trying to get to grips with ever since they won the bid to host the Olympics back in 2017. At that time, they committed to spending 1.4 billion to make the Seine swimmable in time for the Games. And these efforts included a citywide cleanup to make sure that other pollutants weren't getting into the river. And they also included looking at and improving the sewerage and piping work of houses in suburban areas and on houseboats next to the rivers, just to make sure that they're not pumping poop directly into the Seine. And the water treatment facilities of Paris have also been improved. But the biggest step they've taken to trying to combat this poop problem of the Seine is by building this. This is essentially a huge storage tank that was built to take 45,000 cubic meters of stormwater out of the sewers and prevent those overflowing during storms. The idea is that this huge tank will store the storm water and allow it to pass out much more slowly and not overwhelming the sewers. And all of this work to clean up the Seine has been proving effective. In the last few years, the amount of pollutant going into the rivers has dropped by 10, so it's dropped from, I think it's 20 million cubic meters a year down to just 2. And local fishermen have also documented seeing up to 40 different species in the Seine, compared to just, I think it was just 3 back in the 1970s. So that's a vast improvement, and that's really positive. But what about for people to go swimming in the Seine? Well, at the minute, it seems like it's a bit of a lucky dip, quite literally. So earlier this year, the mayor of Paris did go swimming in the Seine to prove that they'd done it, and the Seine was now swimmable again. But the thing was that they had favourable weather conditions. Every single time it rains, the Seine becomes unswimmable. But what they've also found is that after just, a 24-hour period where it hasn't rained, it cleans up again. It cleans up again really quickly. I really cannot fault the pride of Paris to attempt to clean up the Seine. I really do think it is admirable and it is the right thing to do. Even if it did cost 1.4 billion, it probably cost a lot more than that. It really does show integrity to do the right thing and put right historical wrongs. But I do think allowing people to go swimming in it right now, allowing the Olympians to go swimming in it, it is just a little bit premature. I just think that Paris wanted to prove to the world so badly that they could do it, and they did, kind of. I mean, later this week we're going to see the final of the marathon swimming. I just hope that it doesn't rain. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I think around 90% of the recent viewers haven't subscribed to the channel, so go ahead and do that. And if you've enjoyed this video, then you might want to go and support us over on Patreon, where I'm doing an exclusive vlog, and very soon we're going to be heading into Europe to do that road trip, to keep on doing this. I would have saved Paris for the road trip, but I just felt like I had to come and cover the story. So on the screen now is a link to the Patreon, and there's also a video if you want to keep watching. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Leave curious.